Welcome to Prosthetics ART LAB, Experts in Anaplastology, Special Edition, Course Segment for Latin America Development of Theoretical, Artistic, and Technical Skills in Anaplastology. Development of creativity, inventiveness, and basic skills. Learn to optimize resources and produce prosthetics and components applied to this discipline. Thank you for joining us. We hope you share and participate actively with your questions, contributions, ideas, and processes. Your participation is essential for feedback and the success of this communication effort.
Historical context. The pioneers of anaplastology, Anna Coleman Ladd, Francis Derwent Wood, and WalterGSpohn. The founding figures of modern anaplastology. Three artists who, each in their own way, ventured into, recreated, and worked in different times and contexts, firmly laying the foundations for the creation and development of the field of anaplastology. Anna Coleman Ladd, she worked mainly during World War I, 1914 to 1918. In 1917, she founded the Studio for Portrait Masks in Paris, where she created facial masks for disfigured soldiers. Francis Derwent Wood. He was also active during World War I. In 1915, he founded the Tin Noses Shop in London, where he created facial prosthetics for disfigured British soldiers. WalterGSpohn. His work began after World War II, 1939 to 1945. He founded the American Anaplastology Association in 1980 and developed training programs in anaplastology in the 1970s. These pioneers made significant contributions to the field of anaplastology in their respective eras, improving the quality of life for many disfigured soldiers and patients. Understanding the significance and history of things is essential to grasp the present and envision the future. Through this brief homage, I want to highlight the importance of presenting these pioneers and, for those who already know them, emphasize the relevance of historical events and the impact of the work of these visionary and humanitarian artists. Their dedication and creativity not only benefited humanity in general but, above all, transformed the lives of patients. To better understand the historical context, it is important to note that anaplastology, compared to other medical disciplines, is a relatively new science. While reconstructive surgery and medicine have evolved over centuries, anaplastology as a specialized field emerged primarily in the 20th century. Its development was accelerated by the urgent need for solutions for disfigured soldiers during the World Wars, highlighting it as an innovative discipline that combines art, technology, and medical science. It is undeniable that these pioneers, Anna Coleman Ladd, Francis Derwent Wood, and WalterGSpohn, required great strength and determination to carry out their ideas and objectives. They faced numerous challenges to find acceptance and funding that allowed their projects to come to fruition. In times when anaplastology and facial prosthetics were novel and not entirely understood concepts, they had to deal with skepticism and lack of financial resources. Convincing the medical community and the public of the importance of their work required not only solid arguments, but also unwavering passion. Securing funding and institutional support was a constant struggle, but their perseverance and innovative spirit enabled them to overcome these barriers and pave the way for future generations. The legacy of Ladd, Wood, and Spohn in anaplastology continues to inspire advances in medicine, art, and technology, improving the quality of life for countless people. Their work reminds us of the importance of believing in our ideas and fighting for them, despite the obstacles we may encounter along the way. Balance between medicine, art, and anatomy. An artistic touch, combined with an intimate knowledge of the human form, must come together to faithfully recreate the nuanced structures, shapes, and textures of the human body. Anaplastology is a specialized field of healthcare dedicated to providing restorative prosthetics for patients who have suffered trauma or loss of anatomy due to injury, disease, or congenital anomalies. In its early days, anaplastology was mainly used to create masks for individuals disfigured during the war. These masks were an innovative solution to help soldiers regain their confidence and appearance after suffering severe facial injuries. Today, anaplastology has significantly advanced thanks to the incorporation of new technologies, techniques, and materials. This field holds enormous potential and can be applied to virtually any part of the human body. Prosthetics can be custom-made to match the patient's skin, color, and anatomical structure, achieving a natural appearance and improved functionality. However, despite these advances, it is estimated that only about 10% of its total potential has been explored. This discipline is not limited to aesthetics but also addresses functional and psychological aspects, helping patients regain lost quality of life and self-esteem. Continuous evolution in the use of biocompatible materials, 3D printing techniques, and advancements in biotechnology allow anaplastology to offer increasingly sophisticated and personalized solutions. Personalized prosthetic rehabilitation can be an ideal alternative to surgical reconstruction, offering definitive solutions or partial support in complex and prolonged restoration processes. Anaplastology services are intended to restore the affected anatomical features of the body, including, but not limited to, the face, hands, feet, and breasts. This rehabilitation may be necessary for various reasons, such as trauma or injury, cancer resection, or congenital differences. Due to the personal nature of this work, prosthetic rehabilitation can often be a psychologically complex process.
Is the key to the future of anaplastology found in Chinese robotics? Even recently, Chinese researchers have emphasized the need to accelerate research and achievements in the field of anaplastology. They view this field as a promising alternative for application in large-scale projects for constructing robots with realistic human appearances. They assert that the evolution of both anaplastology and artificial intelligence should progress in parallel. China has been making significant investments in robotic technology and has developed advanced robots with realistic human features. The combination of anaplastology and robotics could allow the creation of robots that not only look human, but also interact more naturally with people. This includes the use of biocompatible materials and advanced 3D printing techniques to create customized robotic components. The goal is to develop robots that can be utilized across various sectors, from healthcare to logistics. The integration of artificial intelligence will enable these robots to perform complex tasks autonomously, enhancing efficiency and reducing costs. This approach aims not only to transform the robotics industry, but also to improve the quality of life by creating more human-like and accessible assistant robots.
History of anaplastology in World War I. What the war leaves behind, the faceless braves. It is well known that World War I took the lives of millions of soldiers and civilians. Many survivors were left permanently amputated. However, a significant number of soldiers, in addition to suffering physical scars, lived with fear and low self-esteem caused by their disfigurements, facing societal rejection due to their appearance. For these individuals, cosmetic surgery was not enough, leading to the early steps of what we now know as anaplastology, improving their quality of life and allowing them to reintegrate with their families and friends. Cosmetic surgery was not enough. More than 20,000 men were disfigured at a time when cosmetic surgery had barely advanced. War wounds presented a significant challenge for the medical community, which had to provide sufficient surgeries to restore the veterans' faces. Many affected by facial injuries turned to reconstructive surgery with varying success, but medical limitations left most permanently disfigured. The physical damage was compounded by psychological trauma, creating a deep fear of seeing themselves and, above all, returning home. An unexpected and little-known solution. As often happens, when there's a problem, someone steps up to solve it. English sculptor Francis Derwent Wood, 1871 to 1926, pioneered the creation of facial prosthetics to help British soldiers disfigured by the war regain their confidence. Known for his work at the Tin Noses shop in Wandsworth, England, Wood volunteered in hospital wards at the start of World War I, as he was too old, 41 years, to enlist in the army. Living in the hospital, Wood was constantly exposed to the horrific injuries inflicted by the war, leading him to open a special clinic to provide relief to these individuals. Thus, the Department of Masks for Facial Disfigurement was born, located at the 3rd London General Hospital, Wandsworth. Wood discussed the idea of helping these individuals with portrait masks. After joining the Royal Army Medical Corps in April 1915, along with several members of the Chelsea Arts Club, he revolutionized the plaster and splint department. He then persuaded the hospital's commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel H. Bruce Porter, to support his idea of manufacturing painted metal masks for some of the disfigured soldiers. Instead of the conventionally used rubber masks, Wood crafted masks from copper, sculpted to match the men's pre-war appearances. Wood's masks provided renewed self-confidence and even respect, although they were often uncomfortable. Facial wounds were known to be the most devastating. By hiding the wounds behind the mask, young men were able to return to relationships with their families and friends. A second chance. In a 1917 edition of The Lancet, Wood said, "My work begins where the surgeon's work ends. When the surgeon has done all he can to restore function, I strive, with the skill I possess as a sculptor, to make a man's face as near as possible to what it looked like before it was wounded." The mask-making process began with a plaster mold of the face. Clay or plasticine was then used to reflect the healed face, filling in the missing features such as the cheek, eye socket, nose, or jaw. The studio employed 3 sculptors, a casting specialist, and a plaster mold maker. Each mask required many weeks of work by Wood. A plaster mold of the subject's wounded face was taken, but only after the wounds and subsequent surgeries had fully healed. The raw process was a trial in itself. Plaster was used to create a clay plasticine cast. This disfigured bust served as the base for all prosthetic restoration work, with the sculptor working to replace the missing facial components with forms from the opposite side. The mask itself was made from a thin sheet of galvanized copper, facilitating painting. Painting a realistic portrait on the copper mask was as challenging as the sculpture, with each mask being finished while the patient wore it. This allowed for precise matching of flesh tones with enamels. A 1/32 inch thick copper mask was created from the final mold, silver-coated, and painted, usually with a cream-colored enamel to match Caucasian skin, and finished with varnish to give it a complexion. Would match the contours, pigmentation, and texture of the patient's skin. If an eye was missing, he would paint it on the back of a piece of glass or directly on the plate.
The pioneering woman in this area. When Anna Coleman Ladd, 1878 to 1939, a renowned American sculptor, learned about Wood's work, she became interested. Anna began working at the Tin Noses shop, Wood's workshop. After consulting with Wood, Ladd was able to open the portrait mask studio in Paris. She knew she could contribute significantly with her skills, with the goal of creating masks for French soldiers. Coleman was married to Maynard Ladd, a pediatrician assigned to head the American Red Cross Children's Office in Toul. This opportunity allowed her to move to Paris and, after working with Wood, found the American Red Cross Portrait Mask Studio in 1917, alongside 4 assistants. If she had not been married to a pediatrician, her skills might have mattered little. At that time, women's work was still undervalued, and her work might not have helped hundreds of people, as it was considered a man's job in that era. Help in a dark time. She decided to provide a solution for French soldiers disfigured in the war. In her studio, mirrors were prohibited to avoid discomfort, as she believed. They sought help in a process that was not only physical but also psychological. European society tolerated amputees, but those lacking a nose or with disfigured faces were condemned to social isolation. In Anna's studio, these veterans could receive care and treatment without fear of being discriminated against for their appearance. What was the process like? The first thing Anna did was create a mold of the soldier's disfigured face. Then, through interviews and photographs, the sculptor recreated the injured person's face until they recognized themselves. With this sketch, Coleman moved to the next phase, creating a gutta-percha version, a type of latex. The result was taken to a galvanizing plant, where it was immersed in a copper bath to create the mask. Once the copper prosthetic was created, Anna met with the patient to fit and paint it. The entire process was based on old photos to observe habits and facial expressions. The result was a galvanized copper mask, finalized with soldering done by Anna. The finishing touch consisted of a prosthetic painted to match the patient's skin tone, adding eyebrows, lips, and even glasses, all to create the most realistic prosthetics possible. The end of an unmatched initiative. Most of the proceeds from Anna Coleman's studio were donated. When the war ended, the Red Cross could no longer fund the sculptor's studio, so she returned to Boston, where she continued her career as an artist. In 1932, the French government awarded Anna Coleman the Legion of Honor Medal for her post-war assistance. She was also named a Knight of the Cross of the Order of Saint Sava of Serbia. The exact number of masks made is not recorded, but it must have been several hundred. Their fervent efforts may not have helped in a statistical way, but they dramatically influenced the lives of those they aided.
Creator of the term anaplastology. The term anaplastology was coined by WalterGSpohn, 1914 to 2003. In 1980, Walter Spohn and a group of like-minded colleagues founded the American Anaplastology Association, AAA, at Stanford University in Palo Alto, California. Mr. Spohn wanted the AAA to serve as an open and inspiring exchange of information, welcoming all multidisciplinary specialists involved in prosthetic rehabilitation and promoting coordination and communication among professionals working in different paths related to patient service. In 1971, Mr. Spohn became a consultant in the Department of Surgery at Stanford University in Palo Alto, California. He was given the opportunity to develop a formal training program for students interested in facial and somatic prosthetic restorations. He called this career track Anaplastology. This 2-year curriculum included art and basic sciences, materials and methods, ethics, and business practices. Spohn's legacy. The creation of the American Anaplastology Association. The AAA grew from a small group of dedicated professionals into a multinational forum of medical, dental, artistic, and scientific professionals providing prosthetic restorative care to patients and promoting the knowledge of materials and techniques in the field of anaplastology. In 2008, the American Anaplastology Association voted to change the organization's name to the International Anaplastology Association in recognition of the emerging global profession of clinical anaplastology.
And with that, we conclude this segment of the course. Development of theoretical, artistic, and technical skills in Anaplastology. Thank you for joining us on this incredible learning journey.